March 8th, 2012. We don't have any tree permit right-of-way issues, no landscape ordinance issues, and so we're going to move straight to the report by Assistant Service Safety Director Ron Lucas.
Thanks. We are doing some of our first round of removals for 2012. Some are carried over from 2011 that we didn't quite get to, or we didn't have funding for. In particular, there was a tree on South May, 53 South May, that came down, and a few trees on Courier, a tree at the intersection of Central and 2nd. A tree behind City Hall, and a tree that we are. But anyway, there's 6 or 7 trees that we've removed so far this year. I don't expect a whole lot more right now, but there are a couple things that pick up. But still, overall, we're planning a lot more than we're removing. Good sign. I did have a concern tree, 24 Far Hill Drive, the resident Michelle Kane. She has a large sweet gum in her front yard, visited around. It's a healthy tree. Unfortunately, it's developed a root structure that is doing a lot of damage to her yard and to her driveway, to the point where she is damaging her mowing equipment and tripping. It's pretty bad. So my recommendation is that we remove it and replace it with a couple trees in the same area. But I'm open for a conversation about that.
Ron and I discussed this one. This is a case where we have a healthy tree, but it is a hazard. What Title 33 says is that we can make recommendations to the Service Safety Director, and it's up to the Service Safety Director to make a final decision. And so even if we say that's a healthy tree, she can decide that no, it's going to have to go because it's a hazard. Or we can simply say, yep, looks like a hazard, but it's a healthy tree. We recommend you remove it. So I don't know if we want to go and individually go and have a look and see, or if we're happy with the description that Ron has given us of this tree that's clearly causing somebody a problem. So let me open it up for questions, comments.
I'm comfortable with the decision. It sounds like you've observed it and there's significant damage to driveway, sidewalk, and yard.
The tree, the roots have come up through the ground, so I don't know if they were coming up seeking, when they were planting, just came up as part of the root ball or what, but it's significantly throughout the yard. She actually has a request for the tree on the other side of the driveway, which is a healthy tree as well, and I don't think we should touch that tree. It's just the one that has all the roots going into the yard and infringing the driveway, so there's some damage there.
That tends to be a problem with sweet gums when they get older. Now, what kind of tree is the other tree?
Same, sweet gum.
Another sweet gum.
But it's going into a bank, so there's quite a bit of soil over the root structure. So it's not doing that on that side. And I didn't notice it doing any damage to the driveway either.
Do you believe that it would probably fall over? I mean, if all the root is close to the surface, or is it just?
No, I don't believe it would do that. I think it's just more of it's a hazard for her. These are 3-4 inches high in some spots coming out of the ground.
Oh, where is this at again?
24 Far Hills. I haven't put a contractor on it yet, so we have time to take a look at it.
And there'd be trees planted in the
I'd like to,
place of that, yeah.
And I'd like to plant a couple trees there. That's a good spot.
So you were saying that this is just a habit of this tree growing in this type of condition, that it's not, there's not some hard pan there, and, we've got that around
That
this
tends to
area.
be a problem with sweet gums
It's just gonna happen. So even if
when they
we...
get older.
Okay, so it's not like there's something wrong with this site where, there's a lot of soil issues around this area where it's compacted, you get these hard pans, and that's why it's up. We can put in new trees, is this gonna happen again? But it's hard, I guess that'd be hard.
Well, it might happen with something like a honey locust, which also tends to have that same problem.
Okay,
But we haven't been planting those very often
yeah,
as street trees.
all right.
So what is our opinion? Do we want to make a decision tonight, or do we want to go and have a look at it and then make a decision?
Why don't we look it over?
Okay. So what was the address, Ron, again?
24 Far Hills. I'd be more than happy to go with you.
And this is in the right-of-way?
Yes.
So we can always communicate a decision by email. We don't have to wait until the next meeting, but certainly if you can contact Ron if you want to go with him. I'm not sure when I'll be able to go. I'll probably go over the weekend sometime. Just have a quick look. But if we can try and, I guess, within the next week or so, if we can get it, maybe 10 days.
I've got another follow-up question. So if you cut it down, and if it has this root structure that goes all over the place, how are you going to get rid of that problem?
We have to remove them.
So you yank them out and remove, basically...
Probably with a little mini track hoe.
That's a really expensive project, isn't
Why
it?
don't you, is it possible just to dump a whole bunch of soil on top of it?
That's what I was
That has
wondering.
been one of the discussions, but I don't know if that's going to help the driveway.
Okay, yeah.
And the other problem is that the roots may just seek surface
yeah.
again, so it isn't a long-term solution probably.
But this would be the city's responsibility to do?
Yeah, since it's in the right way.
Because the tree is in the right-of-way.
Even on private property? Even the roots, would that be our responsibility?
Oh, that's right, they may exceed the right-of-way.
Oh, we can't prove the roots are connected to this tree now, can we?
It's an organic connection.
It sounds like it's all part of the right
that's
of
the
way.
city.
We've really never done this before, to my knowledge. We've actually done a root removal like this.
So if we do this, would that kind of open up, I don't know what the city does, but especially, let's getting into sewer lines and things like that. Is the city responsible for that?
Yeah.
We don't do a lot of it. We do it occasionally. We do, if a right-of-way tree is growing into a sewer line at a claw, we'll do a root on it.
Do you have any idea how old the driveway is?
No, I do not.
Because, we learned at the tree care conference that often when a sidewalk bulges up and there's a tree next, it's like, oh, this tree is doing it. Whereas we learned at the tree care conference, the man from Cincinnati, he done a study, and in areas where they have sidewalks, they've been watching them for a long time, no trees, but they heaved up also. So that's why I'm asking about the driveway. If it's an older driveway, it may be that it's reaching the end of its, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like pavements have a certain lifetime, and
it is concrete. I don't know if it's reinforced. I don't know the depth of it.
But if the roots are visible, it's the roots that probably do
but
it.
no, because that's what we learned at that tree care conference, that what happens is that as the sidewalks reach the end of their lifetime,
Yes.
were you there? Do you remember that?
Yes,
Yeah.
but what I'm saying is
Yeah.
that if the root is present as well as the damage, then it's likely that the root and the damage went together. Now, it's possible that the damage occurred and then the root went into where the damage was.
So what the man was saying was, as it reached the end of its lifetime,
Yeah.
then it opened up, and then water and air gets in, and then the roots invade.
Yes, yeah.
Right,
yeah,
right.
Yeah, yeah.
So, right. Secondary.
But it's still our tree.
That's true. But is it our driveway?
And I'm inclined to leave it up to the service secretary to decide how she spends the city's resources on these matters.
If there were a culvert and we were going under the driveway, then it would get clogged up.
Good point.
We don't, we're not directly responsible for the concrete, but we would have some
right.
responsibility with the utility. On to better news, tree planting. There were some trees left over from the fall planting that we didn't get in the ground, particularly a number of elms that I wanted to plant on, that we wanted to plant on Sunnyside, but were unable to due to a storm drain. We have found homes for many of them. It's going to be in the Habitat, the Humanity House area on Union Street. Create a grove of trees. We're going to look into different species there based on the recommendations from you to plant those. So that should be happening pretty soon. I went to the tree care conference, so there were a lot of good topics. I learned a lot about root structures and how in Florida they're doing a lot of planting at the nurseries to get away from the 5-gallon or 50-gallon container trees and do more practice where they're growing these root balls that are already spread out, so that when they're planted, they're not a jumbled mess. Because they've done a lot of studies that have shown that the stability of these trees with these jumbled root balls are just not near what the spread root ball is. It's taken a little longer in the nurseries, but the nurseries that are doing this in Florida are starting to reap the rewards significantly. So, food for thought.
Good.
What is this process of growing a larger root ball?
It's
Different from balled and burlapped, I assume.
Yeah, what they're seeing is happening in container trees.
Yeah,
Balled and
yeah.
burlap weren't included. Container trees were being planted, and then they were reaching the bottom of the plant
Yeah.
or the sides, and started to weave and tangle, and when they were planted into the ground, they weren't growing appropriately. So they were doing some studies where they were doing some root shears every so many months, or just some
Okay.
root prunes, just to keep those roots
Okay, I get
keep
it. now.
spreading,
Yes,
so that they have that nice surface root structure,
yes.
and they're not just jumbling a big jumbled mess before they're planted.
And that
the
can-
stability, they showed some videos with 120-mile winds on these trees that were planted with the roots already spread. They were barely moving. The roots that had the big tangled balls, they blow right over.
And that tangled ball can contribute to the surface rooting and other problems.
And also girdling roots. There were a lot of that.
Girdling.
Yeah, yeah.
That was happening with some of those trees. So it was pretty interesting. Also, I guess we can, if you want, I can talk about emerald ash borer right now.
Yes, please.
We did talk about two pests, emerald ash borer and the Asian longhorn beetle. The trend right now with the ash borer is that communities are no longer planning for funding to remove trees, they're planning for funding to treat trees. So that's good.
Wow, that's a big
They're having some
shift.
significant positive impacts with treatments.
Has there been any decrease in the cost of treating trees?
Those numbers were not given at the conference. So it must be pretty close if they're getting to that point where let's treat instead of remove, because it's maybe cheaper or just as. And also the Asian longhorn beetle, not near the threat that it was initially perceived to be. It's very localized currently to a number of locations. They've actually had success at completely exterminating it in 2 locations.
Wow.
So that's the goal.
That's very
The goal
cool.
is extermination, not control. So right now it's in a little part of Cincinnati, Claremont County, I believe. And it's completely quarantined, and the goal is to exterminate. So
Has there a new treatment developed for the ash emerald ash borer?
we talked about some sprays, we talked about some root applications, treatments that are probably just being more developed and coming down in price.
Because initially it was
Effective
too
control.
They've been refining the way that they use the treatments also, haven't they? Finding out the best methods.
It was a significant enough scare that there were a lot of different controls being taken to try to get the best results. There were some other seminars that I sat in, including some pruning sessions, and the keynote was Dr. Ed Gilman from the University of Florida, and he was a very good speaker. He was the one that actually talked about the root balls. But anyway, he has a website. I need to share it with you. It's everything you want to know about trees, including ever-changing climate zones and updating the trees based on those climate zones since they're always changing. It's a pretty neat website. I'll have to share that with you all. University of Florida's horticultural site is what it is. It's really good. The only other thing I had was we should start thinking about Arbor Day and what we would like to do for the community. We can top last year's event.
Do we know what the date is?
I saw that.
I do not know 100%. I can look it up real quick.
It's in April sometime.
It's in
Late April,
It's
yeah.
around mid to late April, I believe.
Yeah.
20.
We will have to think about that because our next meeting will be April 12th, and so we certainly need to be able to announce something, I think, at that meeting.
I was thinking about maybe doing something at the Habitat House. Where we
Oh.
put the trees in.
That would be good. And
Yeah, bike path and
Yeah.
everything right there.
and are elms suitable for that area or
Elms
not?
are.
Oh, good,
Elms are.
good.
We're going to probably dig out some soil and replace it with more appropriate soil.
What sort of soil is there?
It's very rocky.
Okay.
It's old riverbed. It's not a lot of that in that area.
He's looking up Arbor Day.
I'm trying. I don't know if I'm gonna get it or not.
Yeah, it's real rocky, and you can see some of the trees that are planted there, particularly the spruce trees that are not doing well. That's all I have.
Okay. Well, thank you for all that. We've obviously just dealt with the emerald ash borer. Eternal. Have on your little computer in front of you the attachments I sent out with or do you want the printed copies I've got up here?
I would like to turn it around.
Okay. Because what I'd like to do is continue our discussion on the policy document we started where we were dealing with planting of trees in the right-of-way by adjacent property owners. Just to put this in context, this is where a landscape, or in order to conform to the Landscape Code, Title 37, an adjacent property owner may be given permission by the Tree Commission to plant in the right-of-way adjacent to their property in order to fulfill the requirements of the landscape ordinance. So basically it's allowing the owner a little bit more freedom than they might have if we'd said, no, you've got to plant all those trees on your property. So we're obviously getting the benefit then of getting trees alongside our sidewalk or alongside our road or whatever. In cases where we're dealing with sidewalks, where maybe the property owner actually wants to plant in the sidewalk, or where the sidewalk is very close to where the trees are going to be planted, then I think we need to have a policy which spells out better the size of the trees that are going to be required for that type of application. So this is really trying to set the context for all this. What we've done so far is establish a fairly stiff requirement of a 2-inch diameter tree, clear of branches to 8 feet. That was a recommendation of Ron's, so in order that it doesn't interfere with pedestrian traffic, and that it can obviously resist some of the pedestrian traffic that we get in Athens. The other parts of the specification deal with how the tree is to be planted. Ann Bonner gave us these two attachments. One is an ISA diagram, and the other one is from the Ohio Nursery and Landscape Association. These are sort of standard operating procedures as they are now. I think there are some things in here which Ron has already been addressing, the fact that In one, it talks about these containerized trees that you remove the tree from the container or grow bag and completely tease apart the root system. Because the standard practice around here, I'm afraid, is to just dump the tree in the hole and fill it quickly around. And as Ron's been saying, this clearly leads to a root ball that's trapped within a space and not able to easily grow out into the surrounding area. And so we have to think carefully about what we're going to put with this policy. I've just got this thing here, additional guidance, and I've listed these two documents. What do we think about these two documents as guidance? Emily, I think you're...
They're basically good, but they aren't consistent in all details.
I agree.
And the specifications here under B,
Yes.
the mulching, little or no mulch within 6 inches of the trunk. That is a wider area than is usually recommended. And that's going to give a lot of area for weeds to come up.
Okay, so how close would you put it?
Well, 2 to 3 inches are recommended in some of the other materials here.
That's fine, we can change that.
Gives 3
It's
inches.
changed. Yeah.
And in the, let me put my glasses back on. The sentence, the depth of the hole, that soil line at or just below that before the tree was removed from the nursery.
Again, we don't have to put that in if we think that one of these is covering
Well,
it.
I think that idea is important, but I think they could do that and still not get it in at the right depth if they aren't being careful about the root flare. Because some of these trees in containers now, they somehow have gotten an awful lot of soil up above that root flare. And I think that needs to be a little more specific.
So you don't think that qualifies?
Well,
that the flare is not covered?
that looks like it's just sort of a little addition at the end that might be easy for some people to ignore. Maybe start it with, because it's important for the root flare to be exposed.
Probably wouldn't be a bad idea to include some pictures.
Yes, that would be good.
A picture of the root flare,
Yeah. In a few different types of trees.
I should say the trunk flare.
Well, that was one advantage of the ISA diagram, I felt. Although
Yes.
there's some shortcomings in there. At least you can see clearly what's meant by the root flare.
Yeah,
and
they're
what's meant
trunk
by
flare.
keeping it clear of the soil.
But as I remember, they don't have anything about the root flare in the directions below there
No, we don't.
on this sheet.
And in fact, the one thing I didn't like about this, it said root balls must stay intact. Whereas we're hearing from Ron and we read on the Ohio Nursery one that... you
Sometimes
should
it's
really
impossible.
It's better to tease them apart. Because you don't want these girdled roots.
Oh, okay. I see what you mean. I was thinking about the covering of the root ball. Some cases it says to remove it completely.
The burlap.
Yeah, the burlap wire or whatever.
Yeah, we do in section B here.
And
The ISA does not.
sometimes the whole root ball can fall apart, which is apparently worse. The upper part should always be removed. But there again, that's sort of tricky too.
And that's the way the
How about
ISA diagram works.
Just removing it completely.
Removing the burlap.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I think it should be removed completely.
Because even if it looks dirty, you get those fine little ruts, not just turn. Little resistance. The ISA also doesn't mention loosening the edges of the hole.
Do they use those root books, or tease it apart, or is that a common practice?
Do you know what I'm talking about?
With the roots.
Yeah, they've got these, that's like a wooden dowel with a hook on it, and then you can use it to operate.
Most of the work that they were doing, that they were showing us, starting in the nursery, was done with a hammer or just a spade, shearing the sides of the dirt off, and then put it back and replanting it.
This sheet does mention breaking up the soil around the edges of the hole.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things I like about this diagram is it shows that the hole is really a bowl. And I think that's very crucial to have that. I mean, thought has gone back and forth, about that, but
Wide but not deep.
wide but not deep, right? And this looks, I think, the recommendation I've heard is that it's twice the size of the root ball, but this is more than that, which I think is better.
Yeah. Well, sometimes I think it's 2 to 3 times.
It's about 3 times.
Right.
And it is showing the root ball on the bottom of the soil there, which gives it stability so that it won't sink over time.
Yes, there was something in one of I think it was the Ohio Nursery one, where it spoke about putting the tree on a little mound within the hole, and I don't think I'd want to do that.
Well, a little mound that you create could wouldn't be as solid as the soil.
That might protect if you get a lot of rain and flooding, because you're changing the hydrology. And it might not be an issue here, but I know in my backyard I do that because you've altered the properties, and it'll just basically fill up with water, and so I just prop it up a little bit. But I'm dealing with small stuff here. I'm not dealing with these things.
I mean, it's possible to dig a hole and leave a solid base and then have the area around it a little bit deeper.
I mean,
Takes more care.
yeah, a lot of times I dig up deeper, put stuff back in, pack it down there, because I've altered the structure of the soil. So you have a continuum of, because once it starts hitting the bulk soil, the native soil, you've changed properties. And I know from studies that whether or not roots will explore that or not, if it gets enough time to settle in. And I think it's great to have the distance, because it'll give enough time for that soil to settle in. And so it'll seem like an interrupted space for the roots just to keep on growing. So there's some, I can validate some of the science and biology behind doing that.
But I think one of the things that Jared's pointing out here is that there are going to be sort of special needs in some different sites, and that's one of the things that we don't want to go giving people the wrong information for that all sites are the same, right? And so it's a case of we've really got to rely on some sort of professional expertise as well in doing this.
Right, I mean, this doesn't speak to areas where there are easements, like the power lines and things, very well.
Well, that would be taken into account if we were to approve. So in other words, if you imagine for instance,
But what you're saying here is that in the right of way you want a 2-inch diameter tree with no branches 8 feet or lower. That's probably not going to work in an area where there's a right of way. Should there be some language in there that talks about easement right of or easements across right of ways?
Cable?
Yes.
We wouldn't give permission for them to do this. Remember, this can only arise if we've given permission for them to put the trees in the right of way.
So we would know the site and be...
But all I'm saying is that if somebody is proposing to build something and what they want to do is come to us and ask to put trees in the right of way, giving them information in this document that would allow them to have more knowledge about what we would or wouldn't accept.
I get you. Okay. Yeah.
it would be of value. The same thing is true is, what if the permeable area of that right-of-way is so darn narrow or something? Do we want to say something about that as well? You know, if it's basically almost all concrete and there's a very narrow strip, I mean, should we just, you know, so that they don't come in with expectations that,
Yeah.
you know, we might do something or put us in an awkward position of saying no or whatever. The third thing I have is that I really want to make sure that, you know, although I think that Les Cornwell did a pretty good job, and I like what he has done on Stimson along the road, I really think he needed to have trees in that parking lot. You know, and I just think that paved surface with, you know, with you know, no green vegetation or permeability in there. I don't know, it seems wrong, so I almost think we ought to have some things here that kind of push back a little bit, saying, you know, before coming to us, make sure you've, you know, done everything you can to try to get trees within the, you know, on the property and met the majority of the requirements on the property, you know. Not that we don't want trees in the right-of-way or something, but I hate to see that too. So those are just a few thoughts I had when I was looking at this.
Well, I think originally there was some places for trees within that big expanse, and I think they found concrete and...
Did they? Well, I wouldn't...
and
yeah.
stuff
There's a lot
under
there's a lot of
Yeah.
infrastructure under
Yeah.
there, big
Yeah,
sewer lines.
This
and-
gets back to the other issue of how do we get enforcement of the plans that are approved?
Yeah.
And that is not really in our hands, unfortunately.
Because I kind of felt like even if we couldn't go down, what about, maybe if we could
Large
look
containers.
into large containers. Now, I know that there's more maintenance required for that, but it might be something to explore, because then you could get, you know,
Right,
some,
right.
maybe not the size of shade trees we would like, but something.
At least something.
Yeah.
The other thing, David, and I haven't read this carefully, but what about, would it help people to know like a minimum size for a street lawn? Is that in here?
No.
So that people would know that, you know, it's, oh, I want to plant a tree, and of course, you know, they look 2 inches looks really small, but...
Well, I mean, you've got to remember that they're looking at Title 37. Title 37 says that the space, I think, has got to be no less than 8 feet across in its minimum dimension, and the trees mustn't be closer than, I believe, 30 feet. And so we are giving indications as to how close trees can be and how wide the minimum dimension of the space is going to be that they're to be planted into. In fact, I think there's even a square footage in there, a minimum square footage into which you're supposed to be planting the tree.
And that's for developers, you're thinking?
Well, it's written into Title 37, the landscape
Okay.
ordinance.
Okay.
And so, and this
All
this is, as we were indicating, trying to give the people who are thinking of taking that option of asking us for permission to plant their trees in the right of way. This is trying to give them some guidance as to what to expect.
Okay.
Now, I think John's right.
All
We're
right.
not quite there yet in terms
Okay.
of making it clear what the context is. Yeah, you've got to have exhausted the possibilities on your own property, and that there may be sites for which this isn't practical, where there are overhead cables, for example. I mean, for instance, the Les Cornwall site, that's a good example. Overhead cables, we wouldn't have entertained, even if he had a right of way to put trees in there, we wouldn't have said that that's a good idea, because he's got all those overhead cables.
Sure, right.
Okay, so we'll work some more on this. There's no urgency. It's a work in progress, by.
Yeah, I think it's a good start.
Yeah.
Yeah, really.
Narrowing it down.
Good.
Yeah. Okay. Did you find when Arbor Day is?
Yeah, I did. It's Friday, April 27th this year.
Okay. So that's the date we're working towards. It sounds like the Habitat site is a good site to aim for. So maybe Ron, if you can do a little bit of research around that as to what we can do on that Friday afternoon. See if that is a suitable day.
I think Earth Day is April 22nd.
I think I can tell you that, too.
Okay. Is there any other business?
It is. It is. Oh, wait a second.
Apart from the
Sunday,
minutes
April
of the last
22nd,
meeting.
Yes.
Okay, well, can we...
Just an announcement, really. We'll
Yes,
be
sure.
meeting with the mayor's office and myself will be meeting with AEP again to look at our contract with
Okay.
them next week. So
And does that mean we're moving closer to an ordinance?
we'll see.
Okay,
Hopefully.
good.
Along that same line, has AEP done all the work it's going to do? Will it be doing more work this year, too?
Yeah, thanks for reminding me about that, John. Yes, they are going to, they've actually started some work in the city on Jefferson Alley, and they're going to continue towards State Route 56, and then they'll be out of the city for the
I
year.
see.
So they'll do some work on West Union Street, 56, and then they'll be out of here.
Anything else?
Well, the only other thing I had is, with all this gas line work, has that had any significant impact on trees or?
Well, we won't know until the trees start leafing
Okay.
out or don't start leafing out.
Yeah, But none were removed or anything at this point? They
think
just
so.
drilled under them, through them, or
A
whatever?
lot of lawn
Right.
damage and repair.
Okay.
There were, I did a comprehensive walk around with Columbia Gas and Andy Stone from Public Works, and we identified a number of concerns that we needed to get repaired, and we didn't even try to keep track of the yards. We basically gave them an April 15th deadline to have all those seeded and strawed and fixed, and then we'll do another review then. But most of the work, I know it seemed like there were a lot of digs, but most of the work was done with directional boring. So we'll see how the trees held up to that.
Yeah, I think there's some subsidence problems they're going to have to come back and address.
Probably.
But that, it'll just take time for that to sort itself out.
Do you know you said that they're going to go through and seed and put down straw and stuff? Do you know when they're going to do that?
They should be working on it. They didn't get some good weather, so.
They did some on Morris Avenue
they had
recently.
some.
So I personally, I don't want that done. They dug up a whole bunch of my plants, and I want to have my plants back there. I'm just kind of curious. I'm going to put up a sign or something.
Yeah, you should probably.
Don't do anything. Don't touch it.
Do not plant grass.
Well, they put down the soil, and then they went back with our neighbor, and then they went back and forth to pack it down. Of course, that's the last thing you want to do.
Right, that soil, yeah.
Yeah, like you're going to get anything to grow, but
They're not gardeners, obviously.
Stepping that down, getting that nice in place. You don't want structure in your soil.
it's just a little sore point for me. What they did.
Ceramic.
Okay, any other announcements? Okay, can we review the minutes then from the last meeting? We might be sharing that one.
Tree City USA, do we know when that is?
I can report from item 3 that in fact the tree was not illegally removed. It was a mix-up over a contract that was let and forgotten. So that was a legally removed tree.
Okay.
Do you want to remind us about Tree City USA?
I didn't bring the email with me,
That's okay.
but there is a Chillicothe this year.
Okay, are there any corrections to the minutes? The version that was sent out had the wrong date at the bottom, but I've omitted that from this version we've got with us tonight and corrected it on the file copy. And I think all the names of people attending are correct.
I think so.
So can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll approve the minutes.
I second.
Thank you. Are there any objections to approving the minutes? Hearing none, we have approved minutes. Our next meeting will be April the 12th, 7 p.m. in the council chamber again. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.